and welcome to Nini is Cooking. Today I'm making a pepperoni pizza, and I'm going to start out with a very easy pizza dough. So in the bowl I already have 1/4 ounce of rapid rising yeast, and you can use a package or you could use 1/4 ounce if you have a jar of yeast. So now I'm going to pour in 3/4 cup warm water. The water needs to be not cold and not too hot. If it's too hot, then the yeast will deactivate, and if it's too cold, the yeast also won't activate. So I pour it over my yeast very slowly and try to cover all of those little pieces that got on the outside of the middle. And so now I got that there. Now I'm going to let my yeast sit there for about 4 or 5 minutes until it starts to kind of bubble up. It's not going to be too bubbly, but I'm just going to let it rest there for about 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, so the yeast has had enough time to rest. Now I'm adding a tablespoon of salt. A teaspoon of salt, and I'm going to add a tablespoon of sugar and kind of mix that around just a little tiny bit here. And now we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil and get that mixed around. And so now we're going to add 2 cups of flour, and I just dump it in the bowl all like that. So now I have my 2 cups of flour in there, and I just stir it up with a spoon until it gets kind of doughy, and then I'll start using my hands, but just to get the mixture kind of going, as you see. And you want to make sure to get all the sides and underneath and everything. Okay, now I'm going to start using my hands. Okay, as you can see, I've kind of like rolled it up into a ball. Get all the stuff from the bottom. And I don't like to dough it or mess with it too much and keep kneading it, because then the dough tends to get a little heavy. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put some olive oil on there. So I got probably like maybe a teaspoon, maybe a little bit more than that. Just pour a little bit, just so the dough doesn't get all dried out. So maybe be like a tablespoon, and I just kind of knead it just very lightly. I'm not doing a deep knead. So then now that that's ready, I'm going to cover it with a towel, and I'm going to set it in a warm place, and I'm going to let the dough rise for about an hour, and I'll see you back here. Okay, so now the dough is done. As you see, I'm pushing it down a little bit. I'm just going to flop it and turn it over a little bit. I'm not going to mess with it very much, because if you mess with it, it'll start to get a little... I don't like it. I like my dough fluffy. So now we're just going to take it and kind of do like that. Can you see that? Just kind of gently, just, I don't know, making it in a circle, kind of getting out some of those air bubbles, letting the dough stretch. Flip it over, do the same thing, kind of let it stretch out a little bit. Next. And so I'm going to do that. Okay, so now I'm ready to spread it on the pizza pan. I'm not a fancy pizza chef, I'm just a homemade cook. And that's why I was making these videos, to show you that you can, even at home, do that. Now you saw that little tear there. Now we just take that piece and just mix it in there. Now I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil on my hands. Not too much, just about that much. And I'm going to rub my hands with it. And you know that oil is good for your skin anyway, so... And then I'm just going to keep stretching it and lifting it, because I don't want it to go down into these little grooves yet. And those little air grooves help the pizza cook pretty quickly. So I'm just gonna work with it here and get it close. And my goal is to get it close to the edge, you know, like that. And you just keep working with the dough. Keep doing it. And if you once again have a little tear, just piece it together like that. Squish the dough together. And with your palms and your fingers, just keep kind of pressing it. See how we're getting closer to the edge? I got another little tear here, but that's okay. And we just keep going till we get to the edge. Okay. Okay, so you see I have the pizza all done now. I got it all to the edges, and it doesn't have to be perfect or anything like that. And so now I'm using spaghetti sauce, but normally I would get a 2-ounce can of tomato sauce and add my seasoning. But for today, we're using spaghetti sauce. And we're just gonna coat this around and get it. We don't like too much sauce, so if you like more sauce, of course you can put it in there. But just enough to coat the pizza to where it gets that nice saucy flavor. And it doesn't have to be perfect, of course. And try to get around all to the edges. Now this is a large pizza, and my family likes their pizzas kind of thin and with kind of a thin crust on it. So if you would like a pizza crust that is thicker, you would use a smaller pan, of course. So I would say this is probably about 2 ounces of tomato sauce that I've put on here. Okay, and now we're going to start with the pepperoni. We always put the pepperoni on the bottom. I don't know why. It just seems like when you get that cheese and it has that pepperoni taste in it, it tastes really good instead of doing it the other way. And we're just going to coat the bottom very quickly, sporadically, or in a pattern, however you like. Smiley faces, frowny faces, however. Lots. And sometimes if I'm doing a 3 meat, I'll put some Canadian bacon and like ham, and then pepperoni, and just whatever kind of topping you would like. Just go ahead and feel free to put on there. The ones that go quickly around here, because we have kids, is pepperoni and cheese. Now you could just do strictly cheese, or like I said, whatever kind of topping you'd like to have. I would like to do like a buffalo ranch, but my family is not too adventurous on pizza. So, but since you know basically how to cook or how to make the pizza dough, you could make pretty much any kind of pizza dough you want. Now you're going to set the oven at 415 degrees. And you're going to bake it for about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how your oven runs. If your oven runs true to temperature, 15 minutes should be plenty enough. But, you know, I always encourage checking your pizza. So instead of using mozzarella, we use Monterey Jack. It just gives it that, I don't know, better flavor. And I would say this, I don't know, we use a lot of cheese. They love the cheese around here. So I would say that's probably about 16 to 32 ounces maybe. And if you don't like a lot of cheese, of course, use less. But we like to hardly see the pizza. It's got to be covered in cheese. Alright, so that's pretty much the gist of it, and then we're going to bake it for 20 to 15 minutes at 415 degrees. Okay, so the pizza's done, and somebody decided to add jalapenos at the end, but as you can see, I've cut around the crust, like this to get it loose. And you kind of lift it up. And you see how the bottom looks? Delicious. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed my video and I hope you make it soon. Thanks for joining in to see what Nini's cooking.